Welcome to Act to Impact. I'm Brandi DeVries, and today I can't wait for you to meet our guest, Curtis. Curtis is the founder of BattleCorn Packages, a nonprofit created in honor of his daughter, Jaycee, who passed away at just 8 years old from a rare type of brain cancer. What began as a journey to honor Jaycee's legacy has grown into a powerful mission, delivering care packages to kids fighting cancer, raising vital funding for research, and advocating to push for safer and more effective treatments for children. Curtis, along with his wife and 2 teenage daughters, has turned the unimaginable heartbreak into action, making sure families walking the same road feel supported and seen. He's also the host of the Childhood Cancer Perspective podcast, where he shares the unspoken truths of this journey, the things that parents wish they would know. He hopes of creating awareness, change, and ultimately a better future for kids. I can't wait for you to hear how Curtis is using his voice and his gifts to drive change. You're listening to Act to Impact with Brandi DeVries. Through heartfelt stories of resilience, hope, and community, I share my personal experience as a longtime advocate and fundraiser for the national nonprofit Children's Cancer Research Fund. Invite pediatric cancer families to tell their stories and highlight individuals who use their unique gifts to create a positive impact. Welcome to Act to Impact. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen and also sharing Act to Impact. You are helping to reach more action takers and difference makers, people just like you, because I know that's why you're here. So before we dive into this episode, let's take a pause. Show me how you take action. Make sure you click that follow button. And if you haven't yet, please like this episode or leave me a comment. Those comments help more people find out what Act to Impact is all about and how it's impacting them and how the guests that we have on this podcast are impacting them, which leads me to let's dive into this episode with our guest today, Curtis. Curtis, welcome to Act to Impact.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I just want to thank you for also stepping away from your podcast, the Childhood Cancer Perspective, to allow me to have you on Act to Impact today. And we are going to talk more about the work that you are doing alongside the work that you're doing with BattleCorn Care Packages as well, which I have some questions coming up about that name because it's very unique. I am a connection person, and I am the type of person that likes to connect with people and find commonalities. And so on Act to Impact, I like to highlight how the connections are made with the guests that I have on the show. So you and I were actually connected by another Act to Impact guest, Lori, who lives in Wisconsin as well. She was featured on Act to Impact talking about the work and advocacy work that she does and her son Thomas's journey with cancer. And I'll have to put in the show notes what episode that was, because now we are well past 16 episodes for this year. And I'd have to go back to see which episode she was on, but she was one of the early ones that we had. So I like to encourage people to go back and listen to Lori's story as well. But Lori suggested that I have you come on the podcast. And I actually came across it previously to her suggesting that I have you come on it. I think I was just going through Instagram and saw BattleCorn Care Packages in your profile. So I was thrilled when she thought that you would be a good fit for the show. And I think that you are a perfect fit right now. And the timing is perfect because we are currently in the middle, at the time of this recording, of Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. It's September. And even though Childhood Cancer Awareness Month is during the month of September, this conversation with you today is going to be a good reminder that it's time to advocate all year long, just not the month of September. So we're going to talk here a little bit about today about what you're doing all year long with your advocacy work and how people too can choose to support families like yours and other ones, not just during September, but what they can do all year long to support this community. So, first, before we dive into all that and the examples that you're going to share with us for how people can get involved, let's learn about you and your work. So maybe just start off by telling us maybe a recent proud moment or a little bit about yourself first, and then we'll dive into the heart of the podcast.
Absolutely. So, my name is Curtis. I am the proudest father in the world to three girls. Being a girl dad is probably the greatest job on the planet, and I would not trade it for anything in the world. And my wife and I have been married for 21 years, and we do all of this together. This mission is not something that we set out on, but it's definitely something that we were put here to do. And now we feel like all the work we do is to cement our daughter Jaycee's legacy in this world. And when I think about proud moments, my proud moments are my girls, and I will never achieve anything greater in my life than my kids. They are my greatest work, and what they do moving forward in this life is just an extension of what my wife and I have been able to do to ensure we put them on the right path. Because at some point, my oldest daughter is going to be 20 in January, and my 17-year-old is a senior in high school. At some point, we've done all we can do to put them forward and hope that they make all the right choices. So far, they have, and they've made us proud, and we can't wait to see what they do. So when it comes to my proud moments, it's watching them grow. It's watching them continue. And it's also watching them do it with Jaycee in their hearts, knowing that she's guiding what they continue to push forward in life and achieve. And they never let her name go unsaid and go unheard. And that is the biggest thing for me. So creating an organization like this was something that we did with Jaycee, and now we do it for her in her honor. And that is something that we hope to, honestly, one day. I think the hope of a business like this is that one day we hope to go out of business because we're no longer needed. But right now we're going to continue to fight, and we're going to continue to be loud, and we're going to be one voice until we can make a positive change for our kids, so that no other families have to feel what we have to feel, and no other families have to hear the words, "Your child has cancer."
I am not surprised that you brought up being a proud girl dad, because the episodes of the childhood cancer perspective that I've listened to, that comes through loud and clear. And I love
Oh.
that you talk about, I mean, obviously you talk a lot about Jaycee, but you talk about your girls as well. And I love that you bring other dads in, because maybe this is just my perspective and you can elaborate a little bit more on this, but it does seem that it's usually the mothers who are the ones that are more forward facing and um, holding their kids' hands and going to all the appointments. But you really talk about on your podcast that perspective from a father as well, and the importance of the fathers being involved and just as forward, they are as forward facing as the mothers are. And I feel like sometimes that gets overlooked.
It 100% does. And it's actually been a focus of mine in this latest season of the childhood cancer perspective, is that if you look at the ratio of my episodes, you will see mostly moms. You will not see a lot of
Mhm.
dads. And it's not because we're not, out there and being vocal and things like that. But I think societal roles has us in the background holding up the weight of the world and not showing our emotions and being strong. And the honest side of it, and at least in my relationship, I'm the emotional one. I'm the one that breaks
Mhm.
down at the drop of a hat. I was watching a video this morning that had me in tears, and it's one of those things where I want more dads to come out and be vocal and be vulnerable and be okay with saying, yes, I still hurt, and yes, it was hard for me to get up and go to work today. It was hard for me, but I don't know how to share my feelings. And, like I said, it's a societal norm, but there are a lot of dads that are out there that are supporting their children. It's just behind the scenes. And I want to take that wall down, and I want those dads to come out, share your stories, be okay with being, you know, with being sad, and normalizing that, because it's okay. And we are a strong community, and the dads in this community, I think, need that support and that understanding that you're not going to be judged for it. If anything, you're going to be embraced for allowing yourself to let those walls down.
Well, let's dive into how you are actively out in the community tearing those walls down. So, one of the things that you and your wife started together was BattleCorn Packages. And there's a really powerful mission and a story behind it, and a unique name. Like I said, I'm so curious where this BattleCorn Care Packages name came from. And I don't know your family or Jaycee, but I'm thinking that there might be some time between the name and Jaycee. So, could you tell us about Jaycee, please?
100%. So, number one, JC was the most vibrant and just goofy little kid that you know what, we don't know really where the red hair came from, but it definitely lives up to his name. She was very spicy and very opinionated, but she did things on her own terms, and that was the best part about her, was that yeah, she loved to do, TikToks and social medias and stuff like that, but on her own terms when nobody was watching. That's what she wanted. But she was the best sister in the world because she loved her sisters. Those were her safe spaces. No matter where we were in life, that was her safe space. Being with her sisters. When we're in the hospital, it was FaceTime. And sometimes they would FaceTime for hours and not say a word, but that way they were still connected. And that was the one thing that really gave her, I think, a lot of healing, was being close to them, and even being home when she wasn't feeling the best, being around them was the greatest feeling in the world. And that is a light that, we keep in our hearts now, but we don't have with us anymore. But she brought a certain thing to the room that you just can't explain. But that smile and that face and that her laugh and the fact that she could just be goofy at the drop of a hat, but at the same time be a mama's girl and a daddy's girl when she wanted to be, was the most incredible thing. And the Battlecorn, the name comes from actually something funny. So if anybody has ever watched, Cake Wars with Duff Goldman, and he created a giant flaming crazy unicorn on as one of his cakes on one of his shows, and it was called the Battlecorn. And as we're sitting down trying to figure out how we're going to come up with something to give back to the community, this was like a consensus of the family. And then our 17-year-old daughter now came up with the first logo that we created, and it was this unicorn, all muscles and with a weight in his hand, and it was like, that's the Battlecorn, because JC's favorite animal in the world was a unicorn. Like, that was her thing. And so it all kind of came together as one. It made sense. So we put it together. And that's how Battlecorn was born. And that is honestly probably one of the most common questions that we get, is where does that name come from? Because it's very unique. It's very interesting. And it's, it needs explanation, which is actually really good. Like, I like imagery, or I like things like that that cause you to have to explain yourself, because that starts a conversation. So if anything, just the simple watching of a TV show, which we love to sit down and watch these shows, these cake wars and cooking shows together as a family. And just that simple thing of putting a couple of interesting, intricate images together to make people question it, means that our name will never, ever leave this industry. It'll never go far beyond somebody's reach, because we've put that out there. And it's not about being put on a pedestal, and it's not about billboards. It's about, now you know who we are, and you can see why we do what we do.
Jaycee passed away when she was 8 from brain tumor, but did BattleCorn Care Packages come about after Jaycee passed away then, or was it in the midst of her treatment? But what really was that fireball moment for you that started BattleCorn Care Packages and inspired you to begin the work?
So during JC's first initial hospital stay, so we first went in January 3rd, on January 30th of 2020. We were rushed to Milwaukee Hospital because of some images that were seen on a retinal scan. And when that came through, we were rushed out there. And initially, we're told it was a mass. We didn't know what was going on. And through the next 12 days, she went through surgeries, MRIs, CTs, doctors, all of these things. And in all of that, and she was diagnosed with a brain tumor called choroid plexus carcinoma, which is a very rare form of brain cancer that you don't really hear much about. And it's something that has a very low survival rate, and there's really no protocols to treat it. And so in the beginning, her first surgery to remove that tumor was 10 hours long. My wife and I actually shut the waiting room down, as in the lights were off, and as we were waiting for the doctor to come in. And I remember, you remember distinct little details. And he came in and he had all of these marks and lines on his hand where the gloves had been on his arms for 10 hours. And you can tell the indents, and his skin was a different color because it had been in these gloves. But he came in and he said, I'm confident I got it all. I'm confident I got it all out. She's doing well. We could not wait to get into that room with her and see her. And when we finally were able to, and there's a picture on social media, but when we were finally able to get in there, she's sitting up in the bed with a popsicle in her hand, and she gives us a thumbs up. And we were told initially, she may have loss of, feeling on her left side, loss of mobility, loss of ability to speak, all of these million side effects. And my wife and I, at that moment, we didn't care. As long as we had our baby, we didn't care. And through those 12 days, which initially prompted a second surgery a few days later because they thought they saw more, they went in, they got it out, all these things going on, MRIs and CTs. But the one thing that really made her smile was mail. And when we get, as adults, we get mail, we get bills, whatever, it goes in the trash. We don't want it. We don't, it loses that luster as an adult. As a kid, you get something with your name on it. It brightens your day because somebody's thinking about me. It's coming to me. And the one thing I believe that really started BattleCorn was a box that she had got from her classmates in school. And they sent her this huge box, and it had stuff written all over it and stickers on the outside of the box. And inside it was just stuff, just things that they had thrown in there and goodies to keep her happy. But there were dozens and dozens and dozens of handwritten get well soon cards. I still have all of these cards. And that was what kept her going, because we sat there and we read them, every single one of them. And at that moment, you realize what that gives back to a kid, how impactful something we see maybe as insignificant is so important to them. And so when we got home, we were in the hospital for 12 days. And on that 12th day, this child that had 3 brain surgeries, more MRIs and CTs than I can count in a matter of those 12 days, walked herself out of the hospital on the 12th day. And 2 days later, walked into the school to say hi to her friends. This kid blew our minds. And at that point, when we got home, we said, we want to give back to the people that gave back to us. We want to make an impact. So the BattleCorn started with Jaycee, and it was something that she wanted to do and loved to do. And throughout her journey, even when she wasn't feeling good coming home from the hospital, she would say, are there any packages to do? Because it gave her a distraction, something to do, and the thing is that she loved to do the ones that were kids that were her age, girls, and we would just say, go put yourself in a box. And she would do it. And it was incredible. And it started with my wife and I scouring Facebook, looking for families, reaching out through Messenger, getting in touch with them, until finally, months and months later, a website was created where we could start doing it more formally. And now, at the point we're at now, we're over 1,200 packages sent across the country, over $90,000 in package costs alone that we have contributed to this community. And again, it's not about recognition or pedestals. It's about, that's what we decided to give back in her honor now. So like I say, that it was started with her, and now we do it for her. And BattleCorn will forever be her legacy that we hope to cement. And it has evolved into so much more than just the care packages, but that will always be the core. And the reason we started was because of the light we saw on her face when she was getting things that were meant for her and not meant for anybody else.
Talk more about that with the BattleCorn packages. Like you said, they're more than just the packages now. You're doing more. I want to hear more about those things, but also you just gave us a dollar amount and how the funds have to come from somewhere for you to be able to mail out these packages and to keep programs like BattleCorn going. So what does keep BattleCorn packages going? What type of fundraising activities do you guys do to ensure that what Jaycee wanted is still happening?
So throughout the year, we host one big event every year. It's our Gold Tie Gala. We hold that every year. the last 3 years we held it, we raised the money, we donated it all to research. So 100% of it went to research. This year we raised the money, we kept it within BattleCorn so that we could continue our mission, but also search out, possible clinical trial type research or anything that's local to us that we could help fund. So we will do that internally this year. But we do that every year. But we also host events throughout the year. We just held a tattoo event last weekend. We'll hold different holiday parties and online fundraisers and things like that. So we kind of throw our hat in as much of the mix as we can to try to bring money in. But it is always 100% appreciated because, yeah, the money that we use, it all comes from donations. And in the beginning, it started with our bank account, and we did it until we couldn't do it. And then it was waiting for the donations to come in. And fundraising is not easy.
Right.
Fundraising is a hard space. But I will say that in general, the pediatric cancer fundraising space is very hard because it is not a fun topic to talk about. It is not something that people want to talk about. And it's very easy to turn your back, and not in a negative way, but it's very easy to walk away if it doesn't affect you personally. So that money coming in is essential to us being able to do what we do and not having to stop services or take a break, because without what we do, I feel like we lose a piece of the puzzle, and we take a piece away that can't be replaced. And it's very important to understand that every single organization within this space has a very important role, and everybody's got to be supported. So as much as I want our organization supported every day so that we can continue her mission, I want everybody in this space to be supported, because together we are so much more impactful and so much louder than individually all over the place.
Tell me more about where you envision the funds that you raised this year going. What type of research? Is it specifically brain tumor research then in your area? And what facilities, hospitals, research institutions in your area would be conducting this research, and where would these funds be going to?
So right now we're still kind of searching for those research opportunities that we can find, and they will be specific. I think right now we're looking to focus on brain tumor research. Like I said, in the past 3 years, we've donated $67,000 to research, and that's been a kind of a global to all pediatric cancers. And this year, we want to really focus on brain cancer, because obviously that's what affects us the most. Brain cancer is the most underfunded and the deadliest form of pediatric cancer, and we want to be able to find a way to make it better. So I will say that at the end of last year, we were finally able. So that would have been almost, 4 years that we were finally able to get Jaycee's tissue samples donated to Gift from a Child and to CHOP Research Institute or Research in Philadelphia. Finally able to get her tissue donated to be able to be researched, as well as a doctor in New York at the New York Institute of Technology who is doing a specific research on choroid plexus carcinoma. We had samples sent to him as well. So we are hoping that in our efforts to not only get that done, but finding other efforts within this state, honestly, that we can start a movement. We work directly with the St. Vincent's Children's Hospital in Green Bay. We donate to them every single year as a way of a Christmas donation. So in the last 4 years, we've donated $20,000 worth of toys to their child life department. And if anybody doesn't know what child life is, you're missing out on the most incredible people in the world. But they deserve everything, and they are the saviors beyond words. And so we donate to them every year in Jaycee's honor. And her samples came from Children's Milwaukee. So anytime that we can be involved with any of these hospitals, these institutions, we're working behind the scenes on something. I don't have all the details yet for UW, the UW school system, trying to get something done there. So when all those details come together, and hopefully soon, then I will drop all the bomb on that. But it's one of those things where it just never stops, and you never stop trying to get something done. And when one thing falls, you pick up and you move on to another. And what I will say is that everybody can understand that the legislative process is the slowest process in the world, and a frustrating process at that. And but don't give up. You will find a champion within any party. You will find a champion to work with you, and when you do, stick with them, and they will be your right hand person to ensure your ideas at least get in front of the right people. So that's always the hope.
I have so many questions. I have questions about how these tissue donations work and how her tissue, where it's being held. I'm very curious about this. And then are these research institutions reaching out to the facilities and then they come back to you and say, do we have your permission to donate JC's tissue for research? Like,
So it came from me trying to figure out this idea that I'm talking about with UW and our cancer center here. It all came from that, and another conversation that I had with Dean Crow of the Raleigh Foundation. Speaking to her about this. Jaycee's tissue from her tumor resection had been on file at Milwaukee since her initial hospital stay in January of 2020. I had no idea that it was still there. I had no idea that it hadn't been moved. It hadn't been, and nothing had been done with it. And when I was able to get in touch with our original social worker and actually our original neurosurgeon, he said, yes, her tissue is on file here. Let me know what you need, all this kind of. So then I was put in connection with Gift from a Child, which they are going to take all of these tissue samples. They will take them in a very respectful way, but what they will do, and in this, it sounds bad, but it's not. They dehumanize it. So basically, they take all the characteristics of who it came from off of that sample as per medical policy, so that it stays private. It doesn't go, and you wouldn't be able to then search and say, hey, is my sample being used here? Because it's not going to be connected. And that keeps it private and safe. And that's phenomenal. So they take all the sample and then they take what they need and then they pass it on. There's a research since the part of CHOP Children's Hospital in Philadelphia. So part of her sample was sent there. And then I also requested that part of her sample be sent to, his name is Dr. Zhao in New York. And that sample was sent there. So they can request the samples from Gift from a Child. They can request them from CHOP, and then they can be sent to wherever they need to be sent to and be part of a research project going on at that point. And the best part is that now I know personally that her tissue is part of a trial or part of a research project going on. And maybe it makes that impact. Maybe her one sample, her one slide of these paraffin slides of these tumors is the one that makes the difference, is the one. And I may never know that because her sample doesn't have her name on it. And I wish it did, honestly, because I want Jaycee's name to be in lights and I want her name to be at the top of a research paper saying this sample changed it. But I'm okay if it doesn't, because I know inside and my family knows that her tissue is now out there making a difference. And the reality of it is that so many of these samples, I think, sit, for lack of a better way to put it, collecting dust because people don't know they're there and they don't know where to reach out to get them. And there's really no central spot for all of this stuff to go. And, the idea of mine that I hope works one day is that these central locations become statewide. So every state has a central bank that has all of these types of tissue samples that can be donated. So every state doesn't have to try to go through the red tape of crossing state lines and getting samples and waiting and paperwork. They can walk, if you're putting it at UW-Madison, they can get up and walk to the research lab, get what they need, and come back and start researching it, not wait 2 weeks for the paperwork to get it. And these kids don't have 2 weeks. They don't have 2 months. They don't have 2 minutes. They need you to know now what's going on. And without these tissue samples being available and without the ability to get them in a timely manner, we're going to continue to see a decline in our community. And that's what we're hoping that we can slow down with just a little bit of research and a little bit of understanding and a little bit of push from a very energetic father that just wants to see this done, because I don't want to see any more families go through what we did.
wow. Thank you for sharing that. I did not know that process of how it worked and that people wouldn't know that their child's tissue is sitting out there on a shelf, like you said, that could be used. So I really hope that this work continues for you and you're able to bring this to life. So, and help other people.
Yeah.
You also mentioned, which I thought was very interesting, you're creative. I can tell you're a creative guy. Your fundraiser for with tattoos. So explain that. And I'm assuming you have a tattoo that is in honor of Jaycee.
I
Am I
do.
correct?
Oh, 100%, 100%. So, number one, as soon as she was done with her initial treatment and in the beginning, and I went back to work, I got a tattoo right before I went back to work. It is a gray ribbon that turns into a unicorn. It's over my heart. It has her name on it. And that was initially hers. When she passed away, and then I finally have, and my entire back actually has angel wings with her name on it. So that's hers. That's all of her. And this particular tattoo event was a local tattoo shop decided they wanted to say, hey, we'll have a sale. Everybody comes in, they pay a certain amount. We'll give them a certain range of tattoos, and we give you a portion of what those proceeds are. And so it went decently well for our first one, and they had a bunch of different options and things like that. My wife and I both got the tattoos that say "just keep swimming." It's really kind of that no matter what gets in your way, you've got to keep persevering through it. You've got to keep pushing. And we have a lot of things that come at us and that are thrown at us every single day, and we have to keep pushing through it. In addition to that, the one entire side of my leg has got a bunch of characters on it that you may think that they're goofy when you see them in person. But my wife wrote a children's book last year, and it's called Fred and Friends. And all of the well, minus a couple because I still have to get caught up, but minus a couple are all tattooed on my leg, and that's part of that tribute to her and to Jaycee and to the story. And it's something that we did, as a fundraiser to kind of like every amount that we raised, we would get another one. And then it became something that now it's a dedication. Now I want it to be more. And so tattoos are meaningful. I think that all of us at some point, you probably get something just because you wanted to get it, but reality is they have a meaning behind them and a story. And so all of these have stories and all of these have meanings. And I hope that we can do stuff like this in the future because it's kind of a fun way to break away. And you always kind of look at, pediatric cancer. You have to be doing certain types of fundraisers. And we think, step outside the box and just have fun with it. And everybody can support and everybody can get involved. And it's kind of cool. And we like working with the community. I would rather work, to be honest with you, with local quote unquote mom and pop type businesses than I would with corporations because they understand the necessity of community to survive. And so that's what I hope to continue to do moving forward.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to see what more creative fundraisers you're going to come up with next. Speaking of that, one of the themes of Act to Impact is using our unique gifts to make a difference. And I talked to my audience about having to be aware of the hard so that action and impact can take place. So, what are some of those hard lessons that you've had to be aware of and you've had to tap into your gifts and your skills when it may be hard to grow BattleCorn Packages and to really make your voice heard to be a difference, especially like as you mentioned in that legislative space when it comes to childhood cancer?
I think the biggest thing that we have learned is that this community is so much bigger than we understood it or even could fathom. And also, I think that we assumed coming into a space like this that it would be a lot easier to get support from people because it's kids. But what we didn't take into account is that it's kids that are sick, and it's so much easier to turn your eye and assume it's not happening and it's not a real thing. And unfortunately, we are force fed by the media and the government, whatever, that it's not a big problem, that it's a rare issue. And again, that word you're not going to hear me say a lot because I have a lot of anger towards that word, that rare word, because it's not. And that is the one thing that I think that I've had to really swallow the hardest is that so many people are really stuck in that mindset that this is it's a rare problem. It's a fixable problem. And yeah, it might be if we put our minds and effort into it. But right now that effort is coming mostly and majority from parents like me that are carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, trying to stop this from happening and understanding that philanthropic efforts are what are funding the change moving forward in the pediatric cancer community. It's not legislators and it's not bills that are passing. It's not that. It is, and even the bills that are passing in the names of children, that's because of organizations. That's because of parents. That's because we don't have the ability to sign on the dotted line and say we're the one passing the bill. We just inspired it. So understanding that we have a lot of impact on that, but that impact, unfortunately, is going to get stopped a lot. And you are going to hear the word no a lot. You're going to get a lot of unanswered emails, a lot of unanswered phone calls, a lot of I'll get back to you, or the greatest thing that we hear in the pediatric cancer community is, muchly from our doctors, is we'll wait and see. And unfortunately, you have to somehow grasp the understanding that 9 out of 10 offices you walk in are not going to work out in your favor, but don't stop. And I actually say that I love to hear the word no, because it fires me up that much more to want to go in and say, you told me no, but I got them to say yes because they listened to my story and they listened to what I have to say. I love talking about Jaycee. I love talking about BattleCorn. I love talking about what we do every single day. I don't want anybody to ever apologize to me because you asked about my kids and you found out that one of them passed. Don't do that. I want to talk about her and I want to talk about this. But the hardest thing we have to do and we have to face is hearing the word no and essentially being stopped in our tracks almost daily. We've been going at this now since January of 2020. And I still don't have a bill passed in Congress. I don't have a biobank built in Wisconsin. I don't have specific funding coming from our governor. I don't have that. But I'm not done. And I'm not going to be done until any of this happens. And on top of that, my wife always asks me, when you reach that goal, and I will, I promise you, will you feel like you've accomplished and you can stop and take a step back? And the answer is no, because that means that I finally reached it and I will now go that much further. And now I know that along the way, I have built this army of supporters that are going to come together and make it that much more impactful when we finally get something done.
And another space that you're involved in and getting work done in, I believe, is CureFest. Can you tell me more about that? What is it? Where did you first hear about it? And what is your level of involvement?
So we heard about CureFest honestly not long before Jaycee passed. We kind of were getting, we're starting to get more immersed in the community. So when Jaycee was diagnosed until the time that she passed was 520 days. It's not a long time. It's actually a really short amount of time. But in that time, we started to hear about these types of events, these organizations, things like that, kind of getting immersed in it even more. When she passed in July of 2021, CureFest is in September. We initially said we don't want to go, we don't want to be a part of it. We don't know how we're going to feel. We're grieving, and we made the ultimate decision to go and to be there. And I will say that going to CureFest, especially that first year, was the best decision that we ever made, because it is a collective of not only organizations but families that are there to advocate for their kids, for people that they don't know, to connect as families and be around people that truly understand you as a person and as a parent and as an advocate. And the thing is, you'll go through life and you'll say, my child has cancer, and someone will say, I understand, my father battled with cancer. And yes, it's terrible and it's horrible, but you truly don't, unless it is a child and you can kind of line it up perfectly. And so these people that you go to meet with, and every single year we've gone, and we'll be going here next week, that is our 5th year going, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's more and more people and families are deciding to come together and be a part of this incredible, really a celebration of all these kids, because it's about them. CureFest is about these kids. It's about celebrating the ones that are fighting. It's about celebrating the lives of those that have been lost. It's about celebrating those families that are just now starting to get pushed into this community, have no idea what to expect and no idea where to turn. And I love going every single year. I love being there. Yes, it is sad. It absolutely is. And it's sad to see our daughter's picture up on a wall full of angels, an angel wall that gets bigger every single year. But at the same time, I know we're at peace, and I know that we're comforted by people that understand us, and we can be vulnerable and we can be open. This year, I have a very distinct honor of being able to speak at CureFest at the closing ceremonies, which is incredible. Something that I actually asked to do after our first year. Literally after the first year, I came home and I found the person that runs it, and I emailed and I said, I want to do this. I have a story. And it's taken time. Like I said, it takes time to get to where you want to go, but I'm finally able to do that and share a message and share a little bit about Jaycee and about why we're there every year. I love CureFest, and I think that it is such an impactful event that although it is there for the parents and the advocates that are fighting for this, it is actually very, very beneficial. And I would encourage anybody not included in this community, go and be a part of it. Go and see the incredible points of the day where you've got speeches. Go to the shoe memorial on the last day. Go to these events and see the impact of our families coming together. And I promise you, it will change your life. And if you have the opportunity, talk to one of these kids. 5 minutes. Just talk to them. Let them give you their outlook on life at 6, 7, 8 years old. Let them give you their outlook on life, and you will walk away a different person.
And this is in Washington, D.C., right?
Yes.
And always the same weekend in September?
It varies based on when they get their permits from the park police.
Okay. Well,
So
I
pretty
can't
much in
wait.
that same time.
I know you're going to knock it out of the park and with your closing comments and speech, and I can't wait to hear that. I'm sure that you'll be talking about it on your podcast, and there'll be a recording somewhere. So, does BattleCorn Packages, do you have like a booth or a presence there where people can learn more about you then?
We do. So every year we set up a table there on Saturday. So Saturday is their kind of big event where they have all the organizations that will have tables and set up. We give away stuff, and we'll have Fred books to give away this year. So please come by and get one of those. And she also created an activity like color book that goes with it. So, but we have information about the organization. I am taking the podcast to DC this year. So I got my mobile stuff. I'll be taking it. So if anybody sees me put a microphone in their face, that's what it is. But it's just that exposure. It's a new environment for me to be able to do this. Podcasting is fun, right? And I love doing it because it's anti-social media and it's non-censored, it's unfettered, it really gives that ability to give insight without having to worry about, bleep bars on my face.
Going back to your presence there with the packages, and do you have any stories that you can share where somebody there they heard about BattleCorn Packages, they sent one to a family, or has anybody come up to you and say, I've received one of these and this is the impact that it made on my child during their hard time?
So I will say honestly that last year was the most impactful for that. I'm generally the one, my wife kind of or she's at the table and my daughter will be there. And I'm usually the one kind of getting up, moving around and stuff like that because people recognize me from social media or whatever, TikToks and things. But last year was the greatest because I had several families that came up to me and tell me that we had sent packages to their child and how much it meant to them. But they were all really bittersweet encounters because their child had ultimately passed away on multiple accounts. But they remembered that impact that they had gotten just from that piece of mail. And that is what we try to really enforce so much with what we do is that, yes, it's just a box with tape on it with a pink unicorn on there. And there's blankets and stuff in that. And we always put a note in there that says, we heard about you and we just want you to know that you have a family praying for you here in Wisconsin. And
Mm.
the reality of it is people remember those impactful things, because how many things do you get in the mail every single day that have an impact on you? How many things do you get even in packages that have an impact on you that you remember? This is one of those things where when those families came up to me last year and, they want to talk to you and they want to give you their story and, hug you and tell you that, we appreciate it. And that means the world, because that means that we're doing the right thing. That means that we're doing exactly what we set out to do. And, there's no pictures of me hugging them on the internet. There's no pictures of me, on my social media, because that's private moments that we, well, I mean, around 3,000 people, but that's private moments that we have that show us that we're doing the right thing and know that we're creating an absolute change. And I cherish those moments just as much as I cherish the moments when I get emails from parents about the receipt of their in pictures and things like that. But those last year was probably the first time that I really had multiple families that came up to me and tell me that. And I keep that with me forever, because I know that right there, no matter what you believe, that's Jaycee putting those people in my path, saying you need to get together. And that's what my heart tells me.
I was just thinking that same thing. I'm like, I feel like this has Jaycee written all over it, and she is looking down, smiling, and saying, "See, like this is what we're doing. We're doing it together." So I love stories like that. And you don't always hear those type of impact stories either, unless somebody comes up to you, because if you are donating something to, as you know, to a hospital or something because of confidentiality rules, the child life specialists, they can't take pictures or share those stories with you. And so I can see how being in a space like at CureFest and having people come up to you because they recognize you and thanking you for that and sharing those stories of impact. Yeah, that's amazing. That's hard to come by. Also, with your podcast, you talk a lot about like the premise of it is giving parents and families like an honest voice and really shedding light on topics that aren't easy to talk about or aren't publicly talked about. You don't want to get bleeped out, right? Like you said.
Yep. Yeah.
So why is it so important for you to share these inside perspectives to be shared? And how have your listeners responded to those?
I have a very outspoken nature. I'm sure people can understand that, and a very outspoken nature. I was very unfiltered in my life prior to this, but once I got into the space of pediatric cancer and watching my child go through the worst thing in her life, my filter is all but gone at this point. And I realized that when you watch stories on social media, you watch stories on TV, and you watch commercials, you see a very sunshiny light on these kids and on their journey and on their path. And the reality is, yeah, we do have good times. We do laugh. We do find a silver lining. And I preach that. You've got to find a silver lining. But at the same time, childhood cancer is very ugly. It's gross. It is not fun. It is painful to watch. It is heartbreaking. It's heart wrenching. It is no sleep. It is tears all the time. It is exhaustion beyond what you can even fathom in your day-to-day life. And it is something that needs to be shown in that completely unfiltered way, because you need to understand it. Because I aim with this podcast and with what I try to do is getting away from all that and again taking those walls down so people can see the reality of what pediatric cancer is. Because you can't base everything that you believe or that you understand about this disease on a commercial or on a news show or something like that, where yes, there are editors and there are censors and things like that. And yes, I have a mouth and I will say what I want when I want. And yeah, a lot of it comes out as sailor words, and that's okay. And, I will tell people in the beginning, it's okay to swear. It's okay to say what you want. I'm not going to cut it out. I'm going to leave it in there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to emphasize it. And, I had a podcast not too long ago with a father, and he had swore and then he apologized, and he texted me later and I said, you know what? I said, I edited your apology out. and I left the swear in because that's real. That's how we really feel every single day. That's how we really, and I know that these kids, and to be honest with you, more and less, these kids, they want the ability to say what they want to say at the worst times in their life. And there's a picture that Jaycee and I put on the internet not too long before she passed. And it is her and I flicking off the camera. And I put a whole post and I said, I struggled. I struggled for a long time about whether to post this because I was worried about what people would think. And then I got to thinking in my brain, who cares? My daughter deserves to have this voice, to have this ability to say, you know what, I'm done with this, and this is not okay, and this is how I feel about it. She may not have completely understood why she was doing it, but it's her right. She goes through this and she's fighting this. I wanted to give her that voice, and that's the premise of the podcast 100%, is that I don't want people to ever feel like they have to stop themselves from saying something. I want you to share the real ugly truth. Yes, it makes us sad and it makes us angry, but I also don't want people to get the wrong idea about what we're really battling every single day. And unfortunately, I think that's what we're up against is, I hate to use the word misinformation, but it really kind of is what it is, that you see it every day and you think it's not that big of a deal. They've got it under control. And the truth is we don't. And I feel like it is getting worse every single year. We're fighting an uphill battle with this, and I want people to know the truth. And so, I've had fathers, I've had mothers, I've had medical professionals, I've had kids on the podcast, being able to share their insights because everybody's got a certain perspective, which is a lot of the reason the name is the way it is on it. And I want you to hear it. And I don't want you to hear it in a censored version. I don't want you to hear it in a way that is going to get banned on social media. I want you to hear it in a way that's your voice, 100%.
What is the number one misconception people have about childhood cancer that you have and you want to clear the air about it?
I want people to understand how prevalent it is. I use the example often that if you walk outside of your house right now and walk 10 doors left or right, you will meet at least one person that either has a child fighting cancer right now or that knows somebody that is fighting cancer right now. That's how prevalent it is. That's how much of a problem that it is. The rarity word the biggest thing for me is something that I'm starting now is thinking beyond the 5 years. Once we get to 5 years in the cancer world, you're considered cancer free. But in the pediatric cancer world, that essentially is when the real fight begins because you are essentially given a notebook 2 inches thick when they end your treatment about what can happen because of the treatments. So yes, we do have treatments for these children, but these treatments are based on drugs that are meant for adults. And when we say they're watered down, they're not watered down. They're drawn out over a longer period of time. So if they're going to give it to an adult for an hour, they're going to give it to you for 3. We don't have the correct treatments for these kids, the correct protocols, the correct understanding for making a true impact in their lives, but giving them a meaningful life after that 5 years. That's what I want people to understand, is that 95% of these children are going to have serious health conditions later in life just because of the treatment. So yes, you survived, but at what cost?
Well, last question for you is for listeners who are ready to take action but don't know where to start. What's one step that they can do and take today to support childhood cancer families and amplify the option and the need for more effective treatments?
So your best step forward, obviously, aside from supporting us impactfully personally, is be open-minded. I want you to research what pediatric cancer is. I want you to search the leading killer amongst pediatric cancer, which is brain cancer. I want you to search it out, and I want you to spend 10 minutes during the day just reading about it and understanding it and get the realities of it, but from multiple different places. I want you to support organizations that are working in the fight to change this and understand that it's the organizations that are doing that. Okay. It's them that are putting forth the effort. So to make the biggest change, understand it and then find something local to you that you can get involved in and volunteer. It doesn't always have to be financial. The best thing that you can give is time, and that time is something that we can't measure. And when people reach out and ask us how they can help, yes, you can go to our website, you can donate. That helps us continue. But your time is so important because that means we can dedicate our efforts in other places while you're helping us do things that we need that help with. So donate your time, understand, and be open-minded to really a reality that you might not be ready for.
Great advice. Curtis, thank you so much for being here today on Act to Impact. I will link information about the BattleCorn care packages and how people can learn more about those and support your organization as well in the show notes. So thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to Act to Impact with Brandi DeVries. If this show ignited your fire and inspired you to take action to make an impact, please share this episode with a friend, leave a 5-star review, or write a review to let others know how the show impacted you. I can't wait to see the action you are taking to make an impact, and I'd love for you to share that with our community. Go ahead and tag me on social media as you are out making an impact in the world. Do you have a story to share and want to be a guest on Act to Impact? I'd love to connect with you.